well on this day. I don't know if you've ever heard of Michael Wolff, but Michael Wolff is a famed author. He's known for a book called Fire and Fury inside the Trump White House. That was during Trump's first administration, his first term. This, of course, is his second one, right? And Wolff has gained a certain measure of fame by being a type of expert on Donald Trump, on at least the political side of Donald Trump, as opposed to those who watched The Apprentice and thought they knew him, like myself. Uh, I am consistently reminded every day that the Donald Trump I thought I knew no longer exists, if that person really did exist at all. The reality is dark, sad, and not good for the country at all. We just have to look at it that way. It is not good for the country. And what Wolf said in his most recent internet account on Instagram was nothing short of chilling. Nothing short of chilling. And what he said is that Donald Trump, and this is today, okay? He said that Donald Trump likes to punish people. We know that. We know he likes to punish his enemies. But it goes further than that. If you don't do what he wants you to do, he will literally stop at nothing, not so much to make you do that something, but to punish you for not doing it, what he wants. Okay? So in other words, you could turn around and do what he wants, but he's still going to punish you for not initially responding to what he wanted. And of course, we have the situation with the damage of the big beautiful bill is causing and will cause the United States economy. First of all, not just the big beautiful bill, but Trump's slash and burn when it comes to this made up need to wreck the federal government, to reduce the number of people that work for it. We don't truly have, if you understand the difference between assets and liabilities, we really don't have a problem where we just have debt. We have triple the assets that we have liabilities. In other words, we're not in debt by any means. We have debt. There's a difference. We have debt, but we're not in debt to the point where we're this close to ruin. But in order to make you think that their policies are necessary, Trump and those who follow him will have you believe otherwise, okay? And that's what it's what he does, okay? What what Michael Wolff said today is that Trump and his Office of Management and Budget Director will, and he's quoting Trump as saying this, will dismantle the federal government and keep the parts they want. Dismantle means fire. In other words, he says he's going to furlough 750,000 people, all right? 750,000 people. That's almost a million. Now, if you're responding, well, that's really great, this government will be reduced, which you have unknowingly admitted, and yet you would say you understand it, macroeconomics, you don't, which you've unknowingly admitted, is that you have no problem with the president wrecking the American economy. If you took macroeconomics in school, and hopefully you did, or if you took basic economics which gave you an overview that included macroeconomics, you learned that gross domestic product, GDP, equals C, which is consumption, plus I, which is business investments, plus G, which is government, plus NE, which are net exports. In other words, exports minus imports. Exports are what we send out, imports come in. That's gross domestic product. The G, the government, stands for one thing: government spending. The more government spending there is, the more that's counted toward gross domestic product. The less government spending, the more it's counted against, because it's going down, the size of domestic product. You have to reduce it. So you start off, just for grins, you start off with a GDP of 1 and you go to 0. Well, guess what? That's a -1 counted against GDP growth. So let's add numbers, right? Like cutting, $1 trillion in spending. So you just cut $1 trillion from America's economy. That's what the equation tells us. That's what the equation has told us since its inception. That's what everybody agrees to. That's what every single accepted economic measure uses and how the economy is looked at. So you can't just change it now that Donald Trump is in office and say, well, it really doesn't work that way. Actually it does. It does. Donald Trump is trying to wreck this economy. And quoting Michael Wolff, he said, President Trump, that, you know what? There won't be any talk of Epstein anymore. Which means President Trump is interested in nothing less, all right? Nothing less. By the way, P. Diddy Combs is sentenced to 4 years and 2 months. A lot less time than people thought he would get, 4 years and 2 months. But at any rate, and hey, do you think Donald Trump is beyond pardoning P. Diddy? Okay, now that Trump knows what the jail time is, 4 years is not a lot. That's arguably when the rage of pardon, but I digress. I'm typing right now, OMB, Office of Management and Budget, and it says, apparently the OMB director has a certain animosity toward federal employees, according to the author of the book on Project 2025. OMB director has an animosity toward federal employees, all right? And that came from David A. Graham and Susan Glasser discussing OMB director Russell Vought, all right? And it's said that this is the person that's going to carry out these, hatchet jobs, right? And it's said that it's a Morning Joe comment, so I'm going to have to play it that way. But what it says is,
but for too long, outdated eating meds.
Once the commercial is gone, I'll play it for you. All right, because it's not in text; it's verbally, and it's on MSNBC. But this is coming up. But my point is that it's really sad that people are allowing the president to put good government workers out of work for nothing. It's not saving the economy. It's wrecking it. It's wrecking it. And here,
2025, amid the government shutdown, despite distancing himself from it during his 2024 campaign. In a social media post yesterday, Trump announced he would be meeting with his budget chief, Russell Vought, to discuss agency cuts amid the shutdown, identifying him as of Project 2025 fame. Vought told House Republicans on a conference call earlier this week that mass firings at the federal level would be happening, in addition to the hundreds of thousands of government workers who are typically furloughed during a shutdown. Trump's social media post comes after the president spent much of last year denouncing Project 2025, the Heritage Foundation's massive proposed overhaul of the federal government, which was drafted by many of Trump's long...
Hear that? See? Okay. You hear that? All right. So this is real. Trump and Russell Vought are going to wreck the federal government. They're going to throw almost 1 million people out of work for nothing. And in an attempt to, as Michael Wolff put it, stop Epstein talk. Now, you would say, what's all the Epstein mess about? It's about allegations that President Trump did things he should not have done to underaged women. That's what it's about. And there are claims that this person in Russia, who I will not name just yet, who has video proof, not just one video, but several, okay? But several, all right? Several videos and proof. Now, the last person who was accused of similar actions wound up being sentenced to 6 months in jail. That was very recently. A Republican who held office some years ago, a long time ago. But it lurked around this long because prosecutors would not take their eye off the ball. Some people would say, well, that's a long time ago. But look, when you do bad things to people like that, the statute of limitations goes out the window. Gone. Okay? Gone. We have to stop the allowance of meanness in our society. We have to put the brakes on how Donald Trump is treating America. I thought, you try to rationalize what he's doing. No one can possibly be that mean. But I'm coming to the conclusion, particularly after listening to Mr. Wolff, he is that mean. Others claim that, well, he's unfit for president, that he's got, dementia. I'm not going to go there. I'm going to say that he's unfit for president because we're supposed to be governed as one nation under God, not the devil. Indivisible. Note that word, indivisible. What is he trying to do? Divide us. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. What Trump is doing to America is not liberty and justice for all. I can't even say that it's liberty and justice for some. Who in their right mind enjoys the prospect of 1 million government workers being thrown out of work, let alone begging the question, well, gee, what areas of the government does that impact? And does Russell Vought have any qualifications to determine systemically how to reduce the size of government without shutting down its operations? For example, is he going to fire a bunch of air traffic controllers? We already have that problem right now because it's the shutdown. What's he going to do? What's going on? And why? These are serious problems, folks. This is beyond politics, and it gets to the very structure of how our country is ran and how it works economically. It gets to questions on the very legality of what he is trying to do. Is it legal? Just because he can do something or is trying to do it doesn't necessarily mean it's legal, particularly when you consider that by removing different employees from different programs, you effectively try to end those programs without congressional action. That's what you're doing. And that's against the law. So my prediction is that eventually Trump will be hauled back to court to have to reverse these. Now, here's my issue. If he doesn't, should he be physically removed from office? Is it that time to push the red button and say, you know what, we've got a problem here, and we need to go on a guerrilla march and alter our government because we have somebody in office who doesn't want to play by the rules that we've established to keep the country together? Again, we have somebody in office who doesn't want to play by the rules we've established to keep the United States together. You can't just say, well, he's the president. If he's the president and yet he's not working within the rules, does that make him president? I ask you that question. I ask you that question. If he is the president and yet is not playing by the rules that the president is supposed to play by, then does that effectively make him not a president? I'm going to ask it again. If Donald Trump, who is president by election, supposedly, but refuses to play by the rules of law that surround how the government is supposed to be operated by the president, if he doesn't follow those rules, then hasn't he ineffectively seceded his responsibility to the United States? My argument is yes. We have a problem, folks. We have a problem of gigantic and unprecedented proportions. Do we wait it out? What do we do? I leave that question for you, okay? Because this is more than a constitutional crisis. This is a national crisis. We have somebody in office who doesn't care about you, doesn't care about the person down the street or the person up the street, any place. This person cares only about himself. And even then, that might change with whim. America is not supposed to be governed by people who want to make changes on whim. We have spent over 200 years building, honing, and refining the American ideal. There wasn't anything in any of the books that created America that gave an avenue that said we need a guy like Donald Trump. No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. All this stuff about DEI, let me tell you something. So many people in the United States are so, from a breed perspective, mixed up with each other that if you think that there are pure breeds out there, you know, like only this or that, you are a complete idiot. That idea sailed away a long time ago. Intermarriage intensified in the 60s, and now intermarriage is the norm. Powerfully the norm. Not just black and white, which gets the other thing. You know, I've met people lately, some young people who only call themselves white and they don't know their heritage. Well, I mean, are you German Jewish? Are you Jewish? Are you, what are you? If you don't know that you're Jewish and you're Jewish, you got a real problem, okay? Or if you're Italian, but maybe you're mixed with African, and all of these mixes go around if you go back 300 years in anybody's lineage. If I go back 300 years in your lineage, I will find only one, and I need only one, I will find one example of interbreeding. That's all I need to make my point. 300 years, okay? How about 100 years? If I go back 100 years in your background, I will find one example. I believe there's a 70% chance I'll find one example of interbreeding. And keep in mind, those are during times when it was illegal, but it doesn't mean it didn't happen. And there are records where it did happen, even though it was not legal. That's the standard, folks. So you're not pure anything except mixed. That's the United States of America. And so to me, you mean to tell me that you're going to go off about, diversity, equity, and inclusion when we've been doing diversity, equity, and inclusion for all of the history of this country? If you think about the Portuguese, you think about, name it, name the group. Every group has had its history of fighting to be considered. Irish, all right? Think about it, okay? We're all in the same boat, folks. We're all in the same boat. If you don't think so, you've been smoking something. That's the beauty of America. The ability to come here or be born here and feel that you have the possibility to seek your best life. But, 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 not in a way that causes harm to others. Remember, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay? That means you cannot deny someone else their right, their constitutionally given right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I'll argue Donald Trump is doing that as president. Just because you're this or that, or maybe he woke up on the wrong side of bed, he wants to deny you your job. The main tool you need to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. Okay? Folks, that's wrong. All right? That is wrong. This comes from a guy who tried to get on The Apprentice. So don't get off on, oh, I love the person I thought Donald Trump was. But I'm coming to grips with the fact that that person, if that person ever existed, does not. I would love to believe that person could be revived. I would love to say, Mr. President, I've been a big admirer of yours for a long, long time. I even got the Art of the Deal, and you turned me on to the Silver Ties when I was getting ready to make my presentation for the NFL, and back in the early 90s. And then, of course, later, 2006, I tried to get on the Apprentice and was best dressed guy in the room, but didn't get picked. Happens. But I shot my shot, right? And I never missed an episode of The Apprentice, ever. And I thought the other versions, like the Celebrity Apprentice, were more they were delusive. In other words, they reduced what The Apprentice was about in terms of building an understanding of how to run small business, how to treat your clients, how to manage authority, how to be a good boss. All right? That's what The Apprentice was all about, and that was Donald Trump. So that's the image of Trump I had. So when Trump announced he was running for president, I was like, yes, absolutely, great. And then he came down the escalator, he launched into a speech, and he went all racist. And it was like cold water was poured over me. Cold water, okay? Cold water. And I'm not the only person who thinks that way. Well, I've completely dried off. Donald Trump is not right for this country. Unless he decides to turn around and be what other people expect of him as a president, a great president. Restore the cuts, give jobs back to people, forget the tariffs. If you're going to help manufacturing, subsidize manufacturing, do it the same way the Japanese did, which brought Japanese cars in and helped them dominate the market for cars for some time. And then, of course, followed by their other parts of the Pacific Rim family, more specifically Korea and China, then we're better off, because what they did was said, hey, look, we will subsidize labor costs so that you, Japanese automobile manufacturer, you, Honda, and others, can price your vehicles below per unit production cost. Okay? Think about it. Do we do that in the United States of America with respect to heavy industry? No. I mean, we've done it for farmers and everything else, right? But even then, we screwed up. You have people in Nebraska who are farmers, who filed for bankruptcy. The very economic whole of Nebraska is suffering because they have the subsidies that normally healthily go to them have not been adjusted to make up for the damage the tariffs have caused. And yet Donald Trump just keeps up the tariffs, saying he brings new money in and all of this stuff. New money for who? Not for them. Is any money from that trickling to them? Is it being given to the farmers who need it? No, not at all. Not at all. Donald Trump likes punishing people. He likes to see people hurt. There's something there. I mean, how else to explain all of this pain that he's caused and he's willing to cause? When does it stop? I ask you, when does it stop? When does the pain that Donald Trump wants to exact on us stop? These people don't need to lose their jobs. We've had, think about this, decades of immigrants. Hey, Royal Exchange in San Francisco, great place for Irish waitresses just coming in. Maybe they don't have, proper visa papers and all that. But guess what? They got enough time to become American citizens, did so, and were always gainfully employed members of American society. Let's take the names and change them. Let's, instead of Irish waitresses, make them Mexican waitresses, all right? And now we have a different picture. That's racist. That's racist. And if we want to stop or slow down the flow, not stop it, but slow down the flow of immigrants in, you help that nation build its economy so that those people have reason to stay there. That's what we used to do. All right? This wasn't always a problem. But when their economic production went down versus ours, and more folks from that country came over, yeah, it became a, hey, come on over and join us. All right? But the simple fact of the matter is, ask yourself this question. How come there isn't a Disney development in Central America? Okay? A Walt Disney World in Central America. 27,000 acres of economic goodness, right? That would help solve the problem, don't you think? Of course it would. A Disney design around the cultural touchstones of Latinos in Central America, right? Why not? Why not? We've had a Tokyo Disney. We've had a Paris Disney. Why not Disney Mexico? Are you saying that it'll damage Walt Disney World in Florida? Will it? Will it? Will it? Will it? If Disney is the organization benefiting, how is it really damaged? I ask you that question, okay? I ask you that question. We don't need to handle this problem the way it's being handled. We don't need to terrorize people. And Trump knows this. He sits back, and as long as you're talking about him and thinking about him and talking about that rather than Epstein, he's happy. But he knows the Epstein matter hangs right over him like the sword of Damocles. And he's afraid that that sword will drop at any moment. And he's punishing us, you, me, and America. And it's wrong. We've got to get a reins on our country and right our ship. And we need to have a sit down collectively as a people with the president and say, you know what, stop doing this. It's hurting us. And ask, why are you hurting us? And then when he answers, say, look, okay, we got your answer. Stop doing it. Please, stop doing it. That's a fair request that anyone would make. The Democrats should make it right now. And again, I will tell you, I will say this again and again and again. I have been a big Donald Trump fan because I bought that Donald Trump. And I'm not sorry I did, because that Donald Trump was, the good life. Luxury, dinner at 21, which, by the way, I thought when 21 closed, 21 is a famous restaurant, or was a famous restaurant in New York that I went to every year when I was in New York for the NFL draft from 2005 to 2015. 14, excuse me, because 2015 it was in Chicago. the draft I'm speaking of. I thought when it closed that Trump would be the first person to say we need to revive 21 as a symbol of American economic success and resilience. Nothing. Didn't even touch the matter at all. Was he that angry with New York? I mean, I don't get it. This was a man who was a regular at 21, sat at table 9. I know, okay? Donald Trump has done nothing to revive 21. If Donald Trump cares about the American economy, Donald Trump will revive 21. Period. End of story. Do it, Mr. President. Give those great workers, like people like Silvio, outstanding waiter, he probably has left us by now, at 21, who in my video said, do you know where you're sitting? You're sitting at Cap's Corner. Right next, by the way, to the spot for Fred Trump. Yeah, the president's father. I even made a video. I say, Mr. Trump, here's Fred Trump, right? Okay? That Donald Trump should have been for American business. I thought we were going to get an American business president. We didn't get that. Because when you cut government spending, you're cutting spending to business for services. Those businesses suffer. They suffer. And you have to wake up and understand that. They suffer. That's less of an opportunity for business to get money to hire what? People in America to work for them. Okay? Let alone grants and loans to help people who need it, who are running businesses, or just Americans for different reasons. President Trump has got to stop punishing us. He's got to stop taking these acts that are illegal and trying to make them legal just by his actions. It's wrong. You know it as well as I do. All right? Love your country, folks. Love your country. This is a country for everybody. Remember, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For all. Put that in your head. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay? For all. I'll see you.